welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. At the end of March this year, when the ruling All Progressives Congress concluded its national convention to elect its leadership, it might have thought that the next biggest hurdle in front of it was conducting an orderly and credible primary to elect the different candidates for the upcoming general polls next year. It might have been difficult to predict some of the hurdles that would have stood in its way to produce these candidates, which it now has, and the aftermath of the emergence. Perhaps the first indication that all wasn't well was the visit of aggrieved senators who lost out in their party's primaries to President Muhammadu Buhari, who told them that justice would prevail and advised that they don't do anything that will hurt the party. Well, the party seems to be hurting nonetheless, as the leadership of the party struggles to deal with a gale of defections which has hit it in the aftermath of the primaries, a deficit of trust in its new leadership, and a rather slow conflict resolution mechanism within it. Can the ruling All Progressives Congress put its house together before the general elections in a country that's fast losing hope in its ability to govern? Ismaeel Ahmed, former national youth leader and senior special assistant to the president on special interventions, is my guest tonight on Hard Copy. Ismaeel Ahmed, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you for having me.
Well, since the last time you were here, quite a lot has happened. I mean, I think when you came the last time, we're just dealing with the attack on the Abuja-Kaduna train. And since that time, we've been trying to get back, for those who were kidnapped, quite a number of them. We're still struggling to get those people back. I think the presidential spokesperson provided some insight into what the government has been doing behind the scenes before now. And even then, it didn't look pretty. We've also had an attack on Kuje prisons. There's been an attack on presidential guards. And there's been an impeachment threat on the president by the Senate, some members in the Senate, and we understand that this cuts across party lines. As someone who's been watching, as a member of the All Progressives Congress, and of course you're a Nigerian as well, how have these incidents hit you?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I am, since the last time I was here, I think there has been significant improvement in getting some of the abductees back, especially on the Kaduna-Abuja train. It has not been as quickly enough as we would want it to be. And some of the videos we saw, of some of the abductees being being flogged, rather, by the terrorist was heart-wrenching. But I think since then there has been a significant improvement in the tempo of the military strikes against the terrorists. And I think part of the dilemma, as at that time, from some of the people that I have spoken to, bearing in mind, of course, that I'm not a security expert, I do not attend the security meetings. But some of the people that I've spoken to, because I kept wondering, why is it that we can just move in? We have all this equipment, we have all these weapons. Why can't we move in and flush them out, as many people would say, either on the streets or on social media? And some of the answers that I got at that time was that, of course, there are a lot of, abductees like that who are held hostage by these terrorists. And if, the military do that or the soldiers do that, there would be collateral damage of significant proportion that probably would not justify such an attack at that time. So I think they are doing what they can strategically to be able to get most of the abductees out and then to be able to engage the enemy head on. And I think in the last few weeks we've seen a significant increase in the tempo of the fight, especially within the axis of Niger, Kaduna, Birnin Gwari all the way to Zamfara State as well. So I think that is a kind of a bit gladdened story. But like you rightly pointed out, there have been significant challenges as well. The Kuje prison attack, some of the attack that happened on some of the soldiers in Buhari. and in Katsina as well. Those are all issues that were quite worrisome. But I'm aware that there has been, a serious a pushback by the
When I ask you those questions, I do not ask you as a security expert. I'm asking you as one who belongs to the ruling party, who is close to the corridors of power,
right.
And one who is also observing, like every other Nigerian is observing. Because you oftentimes will have to defend these things in front of the Nigerian people. And I'm sure that sometimes you ask yourself if you have the answers to this sort of incidences. For instance, Kuje, how do we defend that we know that prisons in different parts of the country have been experiencing
There's no defense to that.
Exactly, these jailbreaks.
There's no defense. That's not a jailbreak. Kuje, I don't think Kuje was a jailbreak. I think Kuje was a prison attack.
Okay, well,
so it was an external attack. It was not a break from the inside.
From the inside. But, I mean, that there have been this sort of incidences, whether breaks or attacks in different parts of
inexcusable.
Exactly. So
inexcusable.
If you think it is inexcusable, are you not asking questions as everyone else is?
I am, and that's why I told you it was worrisome.
As to the functionality of government, whether government is really living up to its responsibility.
No, you see, you don't take incidences that happen, sad as they may be, and conclude on the functionality of government. If that were the case, no government would be in existence all over the world, because every government all over the world faces such horrendous experiences once in a while. So
perhaps.
So if the American president,
I think the right word you use there is once in a while. So if you have once in a while, maybe every 5 years, you hear of something of the sort. But we just talked about how when last you were here, and how many attacks or how many incidents.
There comes a time in every nation's life or community or society where a particular challenge rears its head, and it keeps happening in rapid succession. That government or authority or whatever it is that may be in place at that time that has the responsibility of taking care of it would have to step up its game and keep re-strategizing as time goes on, because there are so many factors, moving factors that happen in the same place. The Americans, for example, will not tell you what is the function of government because there's mass shooting almost every other month or every other week in different cities. In the United States,
they know
for
what
example.
The problem in their country is.
So no, let me finish, Mope. And so there will be a time that, so there's mass shootings in America that happens almost at some point, almost on a weekly basis. People getting killed almost on a weekly basis. It happened in this country that there were bombs that were going off in cities almost on a daily basis at some point in the past. So what I'm saying is that challenges would come. There will be no government at any particular point in time or anywhere in the world that would solve especially security challenges absolutely or completely. There would hardly be any time. But I agree with you that there are certain things that when they do happen, you cannot, when you use the phrase, we would have to defend it. There are certain things that we don't have to defend because they are not defendable, right? You can't, the prison attack, for example, is inexcusable. As far as I'm concerned, as a Nigerian citizen, as a member of of somebody who is in this government and who is in the ruling party, it's simply inexcusable to me. And I'm sure the president feels the same way. I would love to see heads roll as a result of that people are sacked because of what has happened, or somebody is held into account for what had transpired, because that's a major breach of security. I would love to see that. So some of these things are not defendable, but to say that the functionality of government is, you conclude that the government is not functioning because certain things, because let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. For every one attack that you get to hear about or you get to see, there are probably 10 that have been forestalled.
Well, probability is the word that you use there. We do not know for sure. It's what the security agencies tell us. But when something which you just described as inexcusable happens, I mean, we need to ask questions of our security agencies. We need to ask questions of our government, because these incidences are not just incidences by themselves. Sometimes it could be symptoms of something that is going wrong, and which we all need to be asking questions of.
Absolutely. And it is the job of government to investigate and make sure that it brings it to a halt.
Not just investigate and bring it to exactly. Maybe make sure it doesn't happen again, especially when you see that, you know, the Presidential Guards Brigade also suffer casualty as a result of, you know, incursions into the Federal Capital Territory. The fact that, you know, citizens are more and more every inch
of this country is as important as FCT it is to the federal government or to the president or to the presidency or to the military or to the security agencies. So the fact that it's happening in Katsina and it has not happened in Abuja, the fact that it happened in Abuja does not make it any more urgent than because it's happening in Katsina, it's remote, or because it's happening in Kano.
Well, I hope that that's not the meaning that my question was carried across. But you must admit that, you know, when terrorists begin to get bold enough to say that, you know, we're coming for the president, we will abduct the president, and they begin to attack the Federal Capital Territory, it shows a temerity which they're gaining. And, you know, you have to ask what exactly is happening.
And now you can see in the last few weeks that there has been a serious increase in tempo in rolling back these terrorists around the country, especially in the northwest and some parts of the north central.
Well, security is only a part of this. There are so many challenges. Whilst we're talking about security and pointing to some of the incidences that have happened, the economy too is also not looking as good as it ought to.
It's a global problem.
Indeed, but for a number of people...
There are countries that have folded completely.
So
Sri Lanka, Venezuela.
We've seen those countries indeed fold up, but, you know, it just so happens that for a number of people, they point to this is the time that Nigeria should be in business, assuming we had a number of things in place. For instance, we know that our primary source of earnings is crude oil. Crude oil prices have been up.
Venezuela has more crude oil
perhaps Venezuela's
than Nigeria
problems
does, and still Venezuela is
just a moment.
crippled.
Venezuela's problems are different from that of Nigeria, and I know that their problems have been on for quite a while. Nigeria's
you think ours has not been on for a while?
Just let me land, if I may, on my question. Crude oil has been our mainstay. Our problems are different. Venezuela's problem is not people pilfering, putting holes in the pipes that are supposed to take crude oil out of the country. Nigeria's problems are those that
at least
people
they don't report it as such.
Are stealing the crude oil that ought to, you know, come to the coffers of the federal government, I mean, in terms of revenue, etc. Our inflation is at the highest we've seen in 17 years. We just heard is inching close to 20%.
It's in 20-something% in some parts of Europe.
I do not know what parts of Europe you're quoting. I know that in the UK it's roughly about 10%. But in Nigeria, this is where we are. This is our country. Right. We're facing our own problems. Yes, we can talk about what part of, you know, other parts of the world.
Once you talk about economy and security, Mope, you know more than anyone else that no country lives in isolation.
Indeed, no country lives in isolation, but every problem sometimes can be local. I mean, you will have to first of all localize what is local about
yours. Not in an economy where it's import dependent and where your main foreign state is something that you have to take outside the country and sell it off and bring in foreign exchange. So
these are some of the reversals that your party promised that we would see.
And we worked on it. We're still working on it.
So the question is whether, if we're to go with the results that we're getting from the National Bureau of Statistics, what results we're actually getting. I mean, if this party is really working on it, how come the results are not showing forth?
Because sometimes when you're working on something, you have to finish before the results show. It doesn't show while you're working at it. It shows after you're done.
Can you tell us precisely what parts your party is working on? I mean, I just pointed to the fact that crude oil theft...
Diversification of the economy. We have this government, this administration, President Muhammadu Buhari, has the largest share of investment in agriculture, for example, in more than 4 decades of this country. You can check it. The largest investment in infrastructure ever since the inception of this country. The largest investment in infrastructure, railroads and bridges. You can check it, check the statistics. You can call the Minister of Works. He can give you all the breakdown and the statistics you want. It has never happened the way it has happened here. Even the military will tell you that there has never been investment in hard weapons and bringing in weapons and recruitment and morale boosting like it has seen under this administration. Now, there are some flaws that we have. Certainly, I would be the first person to admit that. Like longevity of service of so many people who are in office. Like the heads not rolling whenever there's an activity, there's something that happens. I would be the first person to say that I'm miffed by it personally. But investment in terms of diversification of our resources and creating the base and trying to expand the tax net for us to get more people to pay taxes. There's so many things that this administration has been working on to be able to get us out of the doldrums.
So
and the fact that from 2020 to almost now we had COVID-19, from the pandemic to the global meltdown, economic meltdown. The fact that this country is not on its knees like some of the other countries in the third world who have more foreign oil reserves than we do, like Venezuela. You know, I'm not saying that
I don't know why you keep pointing to Venezuela. There's Saudi Arabia. There is Saudi Arabia, which is making the most of this times. There are a few other countries. Saudi Arabia
has introduced all kinds of reforms right now. Before, when we go to Saudi for Hajj or for Umrah, we don't pay taxes. There are no taxes in Saudi Arabia before. Right now, you pay through your nose. So there are so many changes going on everywhere in the world. Nigeria is no exception. We are not living in isolation. What I'm saying is that, yes, inflation has gone up. People are feeling the pinch. People are feeling the bites in buying food prices and so many other stuff. And there are so many things that we could have done more that probably we didn't do as much as we should. But to say that we haven't done much or we haven't done anything, that's something I wouldn't agree with.
I don't know that my question said that. I just said it's not the best of times for many Nigerians. And
oh yes, I agree with that.
If you agree with that,
I agree with that.
There has to be questions as to, because people accuse your party of, I think the biggest accusation is that it's fueling despondency amongst many Nigerian youths. If you look at the population of people or the proportion of people who want to leave this country, the talk of leaving the country, jackbuying as the new phrase is amongst young people, the number of people who are applying to the Canadian embassy, who are applying to the American embassy, who are seeking to go and study abroad, thinking it might be a way to get a better life. These number of people have increased in the last couple of years as a result of the fact that they do not see the hope for their country or in their country. What is your party? Does it realize that it's a problem, and is it doing anything about it?
I don't want to be misquoted for saying this, so I don't know how to phrase it very well so that I can communicate as effectively as I would want. I think from all I know, there are a lot of people that have always wanted to leave this country. Whether those countries at some point were willing to accept as many people as at that time, as they are willing to accept them now, because of the brain drain that is happening in some of these countries as well, especially when it comes to medical facilities and stuff like that. The way these countries now advertise to other countries that they consider third world countries to come into their countries was not there as much before, for whatever reason. And I do remember, or I have read since I was not born then, in the 70s and 80s, how many Nigerians have been taken out for study that probably never came back to Europe and some parts of America. Now, where I'm from, for example, I don't hear people saying that they want to leave the country. I see it on social media because, of course, of the preponderance of social media now. So whatever happens in the remotest part of one place, you get to know about it. That doesn't mean it wasn't happening before. It just means now you get to know more about it because technology has made it easier for you to know about it. And no government anywhere in the world can stop people from leaving if they want to leave. Nigerians by nature are travelers. They want to leave the country. They think the grass is always greener on the other side. This is always a thought of Nigerians. Young people are becoming more and more impatient. But I don't think that this government has deliberately fueled, like you pointed out, I wouldn't say it rightly, has fueled despondency. I think people find it as a catharsis to talk about wanting to leave, to apply to leave, and for you and I to get to know about it because we have the communication tools that will, make us aware. But like I said, wallahi, where I am from, I have not heard one young person that told me that all I want is I want to leave this country. I haven't heard of it. Well, so if I was not on social media, I probably would deny this flight out because where I am, I don't hear it at all. Absolutely.
So where you're from, I do not know how to describe that now. Perhaps where you're from, Kano is where I know you're from. The indigenous in Kano, there'll be a lot of explanation for that. I do not know, if you've also listened amongst the elite, because amongst the elite, perhaps the conversations that will be there will be different. Perhaps amongst the middle class, there'll be a different set of conversations, and maybe amongst the poor, there will also be a different set of conversations. But I have had two different experiences. For instance, when in 2007, I had the opportunity to study abroad, you find that a lot of Nigerians who were there were seeking opportunities to come back home because they thought that things were beginning to improve. With this is fresh out of military era, the reforms that had been put in place were just beginning to yield fruit. The banks were coming up. There were lots of opportunities for engagement and employment for young Nigerians who sought to come back home. There were opportunities then, but it would seem that what we're beginning to see now in those same circles are a reversal. A lot more young people wanting to have their children abroad, a lot more young people wanting to settle abroad and move back abroad. If you're listening to the private sector right now, there is a fear that those sectors driven by technology, driven by in medical care, etc. I'm sure that you've also made some allusions to medical care. The NMA recently talked about how we might soon be needing to import doctors into Nigeria if we're
just
going
like
at the rate.
UK are trying to do as well.
Well, they're taken from us. What are we doing to retain the talent that we have? These are questions that we're currently being faced with, and there are very little answers being provided by the government. In fact, sometimes you have to ask if they even acknowledge that it is even a problem at all.
I think, for example, why I give you an example of where I am from, and because I want us to go away from this faulty generalization of everybody wanting to leave the country, because I don't think that's the case. I think there are certain class of young people that want to leave the country, and I think that phenomenon has always been there, but is now more known by everybody else, like I said, because of ease of technology and communication. However, we are slowly moving to an age where the jobs in the jobs market are becoming more computerized, more technology driven. People believe that there are more opportunities outside this country because of far longer existing infrastructure than they are here. And let me take, for example, the medical field, for example. In the UK, they pay taxes up to 17%. And if you are a foreigner, or if you're not a citizen of the UK, for example, you pay through your nose for any medical stuff that you're going to get. You pay premium when it comes to health insurance. So the government has enough catered for in terms of medical stuff to be able to pay its doctors and nurses and paramedics, and you name them. In Nigeria, we have not quite gone out of the social medical services that government always wants to provide everything for free, or at least at the minimum cost. Because, of course, of preponderance of people who have low purchasing power parity. If you put that all together, and then you have doctors who are being paid by government, either local government, state governments, or federal government, at a wage that they would get far more outside the country, and yet they are educated in Nigerian universities by paying minimum amount of school fees or tuition, for example, something they would not dream of paying in the UK that they want to go and practice and earn the maximum. So you see these comparisons everywhere you go, and people want to leave. Now, Nigeria is in transition. There was, yes, the financial institutions transitions in the late 2005 to 2010. And then slowly a growth to another dimension as well. Global meltdown comes once in a while, once in 20 years, once in 10 years. It hits everybody, you get to the rock bottom. We're trying to pick ourselves up from the doldrums of what we have suffered in the last 6-7 years, especially in terms of prices of oil and global meltdown, the pandemic and everything. Now, not everybody would have the patience to wait. Not everybody would have the patience to put in the hard work and be able to build a country again. But some of us who are here and are willing to stand by,
are we saying, because I think for a number of people, the question is the room for participatory democracy.
Are we talking about democracy? Are we talking about politics now, or the economy? Or the general social services of life?
I'm drawing from your response about how people, not everybody is patient to wait. You know, it would seem like it would seem like as if some people are the ones doing the building, the rest of you have to wait. Shouldn't it be a situation whereby everyone is involved, where there is a role for everyone to play? For a number of people, this is because even in making changes within their community, they do not see how things are going to change. They get despondent and then they leave. They do not see a way out of it. It would seem that even politics has played to the exclusion of many people. And so they're not able to participate in this nation building. I do not know if you see what it is I'm talking about, but
I'm not sure I do, to be honest, because
okay,
I believe that in building something, once you get despondent, is because you refuse to apply yourself into it as well. So, for example, take a community, for example. Don't take a nation, you know, don't take Abuja or the federal government as the only way you get to participate. Don't. Take a community, for example. And in every
interestingly,
society,
when you say take, I had cause to go home recently. I'm from Lagos State.
Right.
You are from Kano. Our experiences are very different. I come from a little village somewhere on the fringes of Badagry. That's where I come from. And I had cause to go home recently. Even the young people there are looking for ways to leave the country. If they're not looking to leave maybe even too far, they want to be able to go to neighboring countries. When they talk about politics and when you talk about what is happening at the general, at the presidential level, what is happening at the local level, they feel excluded because they know that somehow this politics is out of their reach. And I'm asking, how is it that young people who are in the community, how can they be better involved? But the question is, when the local government is dead, when there is very little governance happening at the local level, how do you hope to involve young people at that level of governance where they need to be involved?
You see, my answer started, I wanted to answer something that has to do with community service in general, not necessarily government. But if you're talking about government, I agree with you that, and I think that some of the complaints that the president has made severally as well, that the state governments have somehow been able to stifle the local government. Unfortunately, it's not something you can change by an executive act or a presidential fiat. These are constitutional issues that needs to have 2/3 majority of the state assemblies, who are, by any interpretation you want to look at it, under the state governors, for example, to change some of these powers that the state governments have over their local governments and their ability to stifle them, either of funding or of government infrastructure, or the ability to be able to bring governance to the level of the local people. But that's on the one side. When I'm talking about participation, I'm not necessarily talking about political participation or government participation or whatever. I was trying to give you an example of a community, a simple community who believes that they can do something for themselves. Because no matter how you look at it, everybody who is of age and requisite constitutional qualification to participate in governance would participate, either in actually doing the governance or in voting. Either way, there is participation. What you choose to decide, what you decide to do with that participation, either to be a follower of an individual because of sentimental like you have toward him, or against one person, you know, or how you intend to apply it is something else. But to say that nobody has, that they have been absolutely excluded, no, I think a lot of people have just chosen to look at it that, okay, fine, you who have had the opportunity to be at the helm, either as local government chairman or secretary or whatever, or councillor, it is your responsibility to fix this community. But the moment the community begins to hold the people that they elect to account, we have seen it so many times in different places. I can give an example of a local government in Kano that have held their local government chairman to account and have forced him every week to come to a square to have a town hall meeting and tell them what exactly is happening, how much they have gotten. It was so serious that when that happened, the governor then, Malam Ibrahim Shekara, had to sit down with all local government chairmen and tell them that this is how much is going to come to the states, and I will be the one who will be going on the radio every week to be able to tell the people of Kano and if every local government how much each local government is taking. One local government was able to change the psyche because the people and the elders of that local government took it upon themselves to participate in the governance of that local government. They held the people that they have elected into account, and it has changed. The governor now followed suit, and there was a weekly report of how much every local government was getting as at that time. Well, now, I'm saying that
that was a long time ago.
That wasn't much of a long time ago.
I mean, that's certainly not within the administration of the APC. But let me come back to your party, and I'd like to make a statement. You can either say it's true or false. All is not well within your party.
What do you mean by that?
It's a statement. Do you agree or you disagree?
No, but you say all. What do you mean by that? I need to understand the question to be able to answer it. What do you mean all is not well?
Is everything okay within your party?
Everything is never okay in politics. Until it is okay, until you win an election.
So, well, it looks like a lot is not well within your party.
I disagree.
Well, you say everything is not okay. You agree that everything is never okay. So let's go with a lot is not well within your party.
I disagree with that.
There are those who have been saying that your national chairman might need to be sacrificed to make sure that the balancing act within your party.
I personally think that he should resign, yes.
Why?
Because I think it's only fair that there should be some balancing. Yes, I think he should take the high road. I think he should resign. Why
should your party chairman be the one to sacrifice for that reason?
Because he's the chairman of the party, the leader should be able to take that action. I personally think that that if I were to advise the national chairman, I would ask him to resign and allow the North Central to produce a Christian chairman of the party. I would advocate for that.
Your party now recognizes that religion is an important factor?
It has always recognized that religion is an important factor. There is no Nigerian that does not recognize religion.
I'm just wondering why it has to be the national chairman.
No, I think because he's the head of the party.
Why the party's candidate who picked a Muslim vice presidential candidate cannot be asked to change his mind?
Because that has already sailed. That has already sailed.
Well, some people might say that maybe, you know, it's not far from where you're coming from. It's not just the fact that it's not a religion which is informing this. There has been some wrangling within the party before now. People accusing the chairman of high-handedness.
I don't know about that.
People saying that, oh, most of the leadership of the party is coming from the old PDP, you know, which is now within the party. Some people say if you're from the CPC or from the I'm looking for the other merger now that came from ACN, you might not be able to recognize many people within the current leadership of the party, of the APC.
Yeah, I can see why that is a problem.
Is that the reason why you would, you know, easily
No, that's not the reason why. I'm saying, I told you my own reasons.
Sacrificed?
No, I'm not saying he should be sacrificed. I'm just saying that he should resign as the head. When there are issues, I think the head should be able to take responsibility. And he has said it. I've watched one of his interviews that he said as the leader of the party, he takes responsibility for everything and anything. So I think he, as the leader of the party, should...
He's taking responsibility to see how he can solve the problems.
Okay, fine. If he can do it without resigning, fine.
Do you think that the problems are, you know, possible for him to deal with without resigning?
Absolutely. I think if he applies himself very well, why not?
Okay, I'm looking at these issues. I mean, even people saying that he needs to return the funds of those who, that
was a promise the president made, and that was the promise the president made to people who stepped down. Yes.
Yes.
And I think that should have been done a long time ago.
That hasn't been done.
I don't think it has.
Have you received yours?
I'm not interested in it.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Once I do something for the party, I do it and I move on. But I do know for a fact that all the people that did not receive their...
How is your party viewing the emergence of the Labour Party?
It's just another opposition party.
Just another opposition party?
Yes, that's all it is.
Well, you are on social media.
I am.
I'm sure that you've seen that people are saying that this party is more than just a party, it's a movement.
Okay.
And they think that they're set to wrest power from the All Progressives Congress.
Let's see about that. I can't wait for that day to come. I'm looking forward to it. Look, I love a healthy competition. I love a competition. I don't like when opposition parties are just sitting down on their oars and say, hey, you know what, we're going to lose election regardless because the sitting government never loses election. If we had that kind of attitude, we wouldn't have won 2015. We went after what we wanted. We knew what we wanted. We got ourselves together, and we went after it. So Labour Party, PDP, NNPP, bring it on. We're ready.
Okay.
We're ready. It keeps us on our toes, and we know that this election, I have always said it, and Mope, I think you bear me witness. I've said it on this program. I've said it in so many other programs on Channels Television. And I've said it that this election of 2023 is going to be wide open. It's going to be one of the elections that is going to come down to the wire because there is no Muhammadu Buhari. Since 2003, in the last 20 years, there's always been Muhammadu Buhari on the ballot or an incumbent seeking re-election. This is the first time in 20 years that there will be no Muhammadu Buhari who is an incumbent in terms of opposition before 2015, and there is no incumbent seeking re-election. It's going to be wide open. You have two, especially the PDP candidate and our candidate Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, veteran politicians. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as far as I'm concerned, has been running for president since 2007 without being on the ballot. He has invested in democracy and democratic institutions, in individual and institutions, in occupations and organizations. You name it, he has invested and invested in individuals like me and so many other people. He has built alliances across the country to where he is today. That was where he won the primaries in June of APC. And that is why I'm hopeful that he's going to win the election.
Are you
Atiku
worried?
Abubakar has been running for president since 1992 under SDP. and severally since 2007 when he left as vice president. These are two veterans that are going to come into play. So that's fine. We're looking
You've spoken about the fact that your candidate has been working behind the scenes and oiling his machinery long before now. And there are people who have been talking about where he's been getting the funds for that.
Who told you it has to be only about funding?
Just a moment. I do not know if you saw this article that went viral on Twitter, written by David Hunde, talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu from drug lord to presidential candidate. I do not know if you've seen that article.
No, I have not.
You haven't?
No, I have not.
Even though you're on social media?
Do I see everything that is on social media?
Well, that particular article went viral.
I didn't see it. It didn't happen to come to my... But let me even answer it, for example. We hear a lot of accusations about major political figures all the time, right? Unless
these ones are particularly damning.
Well, damning to how? What does he have any evidence?
Talking about an indictment. Oh yes, there were links. An indictment by...
No, links are another write-ups. Is there any hard
what
evidence?
I mean links. I mean links to verified U.S. websites, government websites, mentioning the name of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you know, showing that there was an indictment at some point, etc. It raises a lot more questions, but nonetheless, those links are verifiable. There's just been silence on the part of your party.
I mean, we can't just keep answering every dog that barks at us just because we are moving on the right.
Well, I do not know why you've chosen to use that particular, will I say...
It's a metaphor.
Yes, why you've chosen to use that particular
It's a metaphor.
Metaphor.
It's a metaphor. Everybody uses metaphors.
Indeed, everybody uses metaphors, but there are metaphors that can be demeaning, which might show that you're dismissing. I don't even think that is worth responding to.
I don't think it is, because I haven't seen any evidence. Nobody has shown me any evidence of all these things that people say.
But
for example...
You say you haven't seen it.
No, I'm not saying nobody has shown me any evidence of anything. For example, there are so many people that said, and let me tell you, this is even, I don't do it only for my candidates. I do it even for other people who are political figures. For example, in the last election, somebody was saying that Atiku Abubakar was from Cameroon. That's nonsense. I'm not going to entertain such nonsense.
People went to court over that.
Yes, but it was nonsense to me. You know, somebody that has been vice president for 8 years.
Let me ask you about if you're worried about the silence of co-contestants of your party's presidential seat. A lot of them haven't quite spoken.
Yeah, I think...
And when they have, you know, it's not been very positive, so to speak. It does sound like one or two of them are still hurting.
This is expected.
Are you worried about it?
Yes, I think, no, I'm not worried like that, because I think we have ample opportunity, but I think the candidate must do what he has always been known to do, reach out to people. I think he needs to reach out to people, not only co-contestants. I think he needs to call everyone for a meeting, not the publicity of going to see a candidate after an election, not that. A real conversation needs to happen between our candidate and some of these major figures in the party, especially those who have contested against him, or people who have dropped their ambitions for him, or people who have supported or not supported anybody that is good enough. And that is what Bola Ahmed Tinubu was known for. He's a bridge builder. He goes out and he reaches out, because there is an election to win. We need to be able to get everybody working in the same line, on the same path. And I think he must do that. And I don't know, I think he is considering doing that. I'm sure he is, because that's the person I've come to know. But I think that effort should be doubled immediately, and people should be reached out.
Let me ask you about 2023 polls, because for a number of people, they think that these polls are the type that Nigeria cannot afford. The fact that the four major front runners are of different ethnic stocks. We saw how, you know, matters went within the PDP and how big it was, whether or not the candidate was going to come from the north or the south. They're still reeling from that. your party had to make a last-minute decision as to whether or not it was still going to go to the north or whether it was still going to go to the south. Now a southern candidate has emerged. Some other parties, NNPP has a northern candidate, and the Labour Party has a southeastern candidate. And people are saying that these elections, they fear, could divide us even further.
I don't think so.
Do you have your fears?
No. You see, I always worry about our fault lines. Not necessarily about elections only. I always worry about our fault lines, especially when I see what happens on social media and how ignorant young people are of each other. So it worries me sometimes. I just feel like, let me go into a room and just gather all of them together and tell them, hey, what the hell are you doing at the end of the day? So I can understand where some of the people who are saying this, they are not cynical, they are just worried. I'm not as worried as they are, because I believe that this country has a way of coming back together once you have purposeful and very strong leadership that would lead the way.
Does it really?
The conventions, for example.
Does it really? Because for a number of people, they think we've not quite recovered from the 2015 elections. And they also accuse your own party, the president of the country, of even fueling that further with the sort of appointments that he's made.
I think a lot of Nigerians were happy after the 2015 elections, generally, across the board. Of course, with the exception of party members of the PDP. I have a cousin of mine from Kano who is a PDP person, who refused to see me for almost 6 months after we won the election because we argued that we were going to win, and he was a Jonathan fan, and he's from Kano, and he probably never has met Jonathan. But he's a PDP person, that's his party, that's his loyalty, that's where his loyalty lies. And then you have people I know, friends of mine from the South, who were diehard Buhari people till date. And they're still ecstatic of the fact that we won that election. So I think so many things have happened in the last 7 years, and generally people tend to drift away from government in power and begin to look for new succor, either in terms of persona or personality or person, or in terms of party. I think this country would come back together once we have an elected president.
Do you think you do? Do you think
the constitution of the country, fortunately, has made it in a way that no one ethnicity or one region or one zone can be able to deliver a president. It needs an alliance with other people and other regions and other zones. So regardless of the outcome of the election, there would be a president that would be elected, maybe even largely outside his ethnicity or geopolitical zone. He would be elected by other people. And I think it is his ability to govern effectively and to show that purpose of Nigerianness that would determine how polarized or lack of it that this country would be in the next few years.
Ismaeel Ahmed, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you for having me.
That's the program tonight. Do let us know what your thoughts are using the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Yusuf. Good night.